everybody. Welcome to our online conversation. We're just continuing our Sabbath series. This is actually the wrap-up. This is the very end of the Sabbath series. I know you guys were like, when is Christmas coming? No, I'm just kidding. Hopefully you all liked practicing Sabbath, but we're just here to have a conversation about our last week. So we had talked about worship last week. I had given a sermon on Sabbath as a day of worship. And the definition given, and this was all from practicingtheway.org, if you want to check it out, was a whole life orientation around God. John, what would you add to that? How would you further define what worship is?
Yeah, just before I was really thinking about Sabbath and worship, but I was really thinking as worship as our attention. And I'm taking it just on a lean of a counseling kind of perspective, of course. This is what I'm studying a lot of. But the specialness of attention and really intentional attention. So maybe Sabbath is intention of attention, right? And as we give that intention of attention in counseling, and a counselor does that for whoever's on the other side, it really begins to open up their life, right? They can be themselves, be present, and really be embodied, and really begin to process out things that are going on in the inside. And I feel like maybe in that way, when we are worshiping God, it begins to open up who God is, right? As we're giving Him full attention, right? There's a way of, and I don't want to go off the rails here, which I can. There's a way of reading the Bible where you're just like reading verse after verse after verse, and you're like, all right, check, I'm done. This is what I should do, right? But there's also a way of reading the Bible with like attention, just sitting there and waiting and being intentional about wanting to know what God is doing in the text and how God is speaking to us. And then for me, that's when the Word of God begins to really open up, right? And I'm starting to see how Jesus' words is trying to unveil heaven. And I know in Hannah's sermon she talked about the temple, and I was thinking at the temple being just being in the veil being ripped. You're in the holies of holies. Heaven and earth is meeting, and that's what's going on as we worship God. This whole holies of holies, heaven and earth are meeting, and we get to see our lives, and we get to see one another, and we get to see God in who He really is, instead of just covered up by all the other things in life. And so what if on our Sabbath day, as we worship, it is really an unveiling of heaven into our life? Yeah, those are my thoughts.
Yeah, and I think that paying attention portion is key, because a lot of us aren't used to paying attention to
That's
God.
for sure.
Unless it's to receive something back, because often we pay attention with the mindset, and I feel like I've only been learning this in the past few years. A lot of us are almost taught to pay attention for what God might ask us to do or what guidance He may give us, and sometimes attention looks like just being with Him.
Yeah.
And that's really hard, at least for me. So I think that intentional attention is a great point for Sabbath.
Yeah, but I was wondering, like, what if intentional attention is the key, right? I would say that's even prayer.
Yeah.
And that's Sabbath, and that's and we know it all goes into this place where we take a day out of our week and we say, God, thank you so much. We are resting, we're delighting, we are worshiping, and we are saying, God, you are the ultimate reality. There's this reality plane that we live on, but God, you are the ultimate reality. Help me walk into that ultimate reality with my life, because I am dressing it up with so many things and trying, and so many things are taking my heart, right? I'm worshiping these things, right? And I heard it once said, worship is whatever you give most of your worth to, and maybe worth and attention.
Money,
there.
I'm sure.
Yeah, and on Sabbath we're resting in God and enjoying that. In Sabbath we're worshiping God, enjoying that, and we are him, right? We're not just for him. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you were touching on something that we've said all along, that what we practice on the Sabbath does affect the whole week long. So we can say worship is an intentional part of our Sabbath, but because we do that one day a week, it doesn't stop there. Our eyes are open to paying attention to God on a more regular basis through our week. And you could say that about rest and delight too, but I think worship is maybe especially one that's affected throughout the week. As I've been doing these online conversations over Zoom, I've been asking everyone like what their Sabbath is looking like right now. So do you want to describe what your Sabbath has looked like in the past few months, and maybe things that you've learned or places you want to grow in that?
Yeah. I think one of the big areas is like to really stop, right? We're like, oh, we'll Sabbath and find time for rest, but what if we went, like, I loved when you said like Sabbath is resistance. What if we resisted all the things that like we have to do to say, this is for you. I don't need to shop. I don't need to participate in all the other things. I'm here and I need to stop and like look around. When's the last time we've stopped and just looked around? I think that's why nature is so neat, right? Because sometimes your phone doesn't work there unless you're trying to take as much video as you can to let people know how much you love nature. But what if instead of telling people how much we love nature, what if we were just in it? And we were just...
That's a radical idea.
Yeah, just a part of it, right? I am not like experiencing nature. I am a part of God's divine beauty and creation. And there's something so much bigger than you. I think that's the cool part of being in creation. You're like, oh my goodness, the beauty is radical. And I'm a part of this. And God designed this for my joy. But really, God designed it for His joy, and I am designed for His joy. What a concept, right? And I think that I'm learning a lot of that this is a good day. I can stop, I can rest, I can be with God. And I was telling Hannah earlier, the biggest thing about Sabbath for me now is when I miss it. When I actually miss a day, it kind of messes up the rest of the week. And you can ask Candace and I, we're like, what? You put something on the Sabbath? You know how that's going to mess up the rest of the thing? Because we develop our lives around this day with God, with each other, a day of delight, a day of rest, a day of stop, a day of worship.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a learning process for everyone. I don't know how many times I've said to you, oh, I shouldn't have sent that text. It was Friday. It's your Sabbath. And even, I don't know, for you guys watching, like, John tries to Sabbath on the Friday, so don't send him texts. But I just put that out there because we all need, in our own lives, to be establishing those boundaries too. And the longer you practice it, the more your community knows about it. But it's not just an individual thing. Like, we need everybody to help us to do that.
Yeah, for sure. And what if we pushed one another to be holy or set apart and made Sabbath something that we do, and it's our resistance. Maybe I'm just rebellious, but I love that. It's like I am going to be part of the resistance and bringing God's kingdom forward, and I'm going to do it by resisting so many of the temptations we can fall into.
Yeah, and I think for me, learning over the past weeks about practicing the Sabbath in my own life, I've practiced Sabbath pretty consistently for the last 3 years. There's been times where it's gone by the wayside, but I think the biggest learning part for me was just doing it in community and actually having those conversations with my house church about this. This is how it went. This is what I didn't do, or what I did do that worked or didn't work. These are the things I would like to try next time, or where I need to make some intentional effort to prepare beforehand. And just having a community to talk through those things with was very helpful as we did this series, because it had always been sort of something I did more by myself and experimented a lot with different things I thought would be helpful, but didn't have those conversations that really helped it take the next step.
Yeah, like just the power of community, right? And that we are setting ourselves apart, and we are taking this seriously. This is not, and I get it. Yes, you miss Sabbath, and we're not coming down on you. How dare you? None of that.
Yeah, everyone does.
Yeah, we will. But I'm just saying, what if we together we were part of a move of doing this in community? How empowering is that? Yeah. So thank you for joining us during the Sabbath series, and don't stop. Don't stop, please. Push through and share, and I hope that as we give intention and attention, that we would be more of heaven would really open up in all of our lives. God bless you guys.